Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for July 30th, 2024. Well, as we wind down this month, we certainly have a lot of data coming our way, including a big day of earnings that will include Microsoft and AMD after the bell today. And then, of course, we begin the FOMC meeting today with their decision to be coming tomorrow afternoon. Let's take a look at what happened overnight here in the market. We had Asian markets. Asian markets were mostly lower as the Bank of Japan began its two-day meeting to decide what to do over there about their rate policies. So we were mostly lower with only the Nikkei slightly higher. European markets are mixed this morning, but mostly higher with the DAX up just short of 0.5%, while the FTSE is down almost 0.25%, and the CAC is up 0.5 cent. Once again, they are gearing up for their central bank decision, which is coming on Thursday. If we take a look at U.S. markets here this morning, well, once again, we're the only ones pushing for upside moves here in the pre-market, trying to pump it up. Green across the board here this morning with a big day of earnings reports and a whole lot of anticipation and hopefulness that these are going to propel our markets higher. Let's take a look at our oil sector this morning. If we take a look at XLE, we had a little bit of a pullback in there yesterday, and we look like we could pull back just a little bit more this morning. Oil just slightly lower, but it has improved a little bit in the pre-market as we continue to see this Israel-Hezbollah issue really starting to raise up. The tensions growing between there and Lebanon, and of course any kind of instability in the Middle East puts that pressure back on oil prices. We'll want to watch that pretty closely as that continues to escalate. Natural gas is just a little bit higher today, but boy, I'll tell you what, natural gas, you would think we will never need natural gas again here in the world the way it is looking right now. But clearly we will. So at some point in time, this is going to come back up. But right now, it is an ugly looking chart. Let's take a look at our precious metals this morning. We have gold. Now, gold was trying to move up yesterday, and it did, and then it faded back by the end of the day. Ending up closing up just ever so slightly, $1.14 on that move in GLD. And you can see this morning it is trying to move higher once again, up $11.90 an ounce on the current gold futures, trying to move a little bit higher. And silver is also trying to move just slightly higher here this morning. Copper is just slightly down. Platinum and palladium are a little bit higher today, but boy, there's been a lot of volatility here. Same thing is true in cryptos. An awful lot of volatility in those cryptos. We started yesterday with a pretty rough day, and Bitcoin continued to stay that way throughout the day, driving on lower. And you can see this morning we're looking at a little bit lower as well here on BITO, with Bitcoin down $869 a coin at the moment. And there's quite a mix here on the cryptos this morning, so keep a close eye on that. If we take a look at our bonds, the 2-year bonds this morning, 4.39%, moving slightly higher again, with the 10-year moving slightly lower at 4.17%. Our 30-year bonds at 4.42%. So kind of a mix of data there. And I would expect over the next couple of days with all these central bank decisions, we could see quite the movement in those bonds and currency as well. There's a huge anticipation here that the dollar could really weaken on some of these decisions. So watch that carefully. Right now, the dollar had a pretty good day yesterday and trying to move just a little bit higher this morning. So keep a close eye on that. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these charts and see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today with all this data coming down the pipeline. And remember, we want to take a look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and try to shake off that bias. Well, first off, as you can see, I put this little green square up in here because I wanted to illustrate to the folks in RWO how important this little area was. We've got all of this congestion right in this area. And I had suggested yesterday, watch for a potential whipsaw, but I had no idea that it would start the second the market opened. As soon as the market opened, they started selling back off, pulling us back down into the support of this little green box. And that little green box could serve as either a launching point for the upside, or it could prove to be that disappointing reversal in that lower high here in the market. So we'll want to watch that area here pretty closely as we go through all of these decision points. So if the bulls find inspiration here today, first thing we need to do is break through the little resistance that we've got right in there. And then we'll start looking up here through these levels in the chart to see if we can push on through on up. And then, of course, if we push up here, we'll be looking at testing all-time highs in the market, and that is certainly a possibility. So keep a close eye on that. Now, if those bears were to find inspiration here today, then pushing down below yesterday's low, pushing back into this box, and that little support area right across those candles right there, I'd be watching fairly closely. Breaking down below there, I think we have that chance that we come down right into here, test that area of the chart, and then it really wouldn't be all that much of a push. And we're back down here, maybe testing this bigger area of price support and that potential upside trend. So keep an eye on that. Remember, our last swing low down here, we came all the way down in here, which is that little bit stronger area of price support right here. So watch that carefully if those bears were to get going. If we take a look at our SPY, well, our SPY still doing a pretty good job holding above its 50-day moving average, although yesterday with that pop and drop probably raised a little bit of concern in the market. We're trying to push through that this morning with a little upside move, as you can see. But one of our first steps here, if the bulls are going to have anything to say about this market, is we need to break through some of this little resistance area in the chart and see if we can break through this downtrend. That's going to be really, really important here. And if we can break up through there, then we've got this gap up here that we could fill and push on through that downtrend. Of course, these corporate earnings, and particularly this afternoon when we get Microsoft and AMD, might be our best opportunity for that to break through. Just remember that uncertainty that we're dealing with here as well means that if those companies were to disappoint us here, and we started to move lower, you can see this would be the perfect place for us to see a potential failure. And I would say if we do, kind of pushing back down below this level here would be critical in the chart, breaking back down through there. And then if we dropped through there, I would be looking at some of these progressive levels on down and possibly even a new low, which would once again confirm our downtrend is still in play if we were to fall in below that area. After that point, I'm suggesting we may come down into here, and then our bigger area of price support would be down in here. And that would be if we get disappointed by these big tech reports, well, we could move quickly to the downside. Unfortunately, it would be a gap in the morning, either to the upside or to the downside that we'll likely be dealing with. And your guess is as good as mine. Keeping in mind, holding on to that 50-day moving average is going to be pretty critical for the psychological effect here in the SPY. If we take a look at our QQQ, we know here that we are already below our 50-day moving average in the QQQ. So there is a lot riding on the Microsoft AMD reports today as to whether or not they can push back up, break through that 50-day here in the chart. Notice we've got this little resistance level here in the chart with a little gap above that could be maybe refilled to the upside, and then we'll start looking for these resistance levels up in here and see whether or not we get an opportunity to maybe break through this downtrend here in the QQQ. Certainly those tech reports have the capability of doing that and jumping really big, even moving up. We might even be looking at stretching all the way through to fill those gaps in on the way down in the chart as we progress back up. Now, if those bears were to find inspiration here today, we can certainly see the pathway here isn't all that hard to go to the downside if there is some disappointment. First off, I would be looking at an area right in here for some price support, and if that were to fail, then I'm going to suggest it could be a pretty quick trip right down into this next level of price support in the chart. Failure through here would be really intense for the market, because you can see this is a very important area of price support. Failure through there could potentially bring us on down to test the lower side of that support, and obviously that would be some really big moves in the QQQ. So fingers crossed on how those reports come out, because a lot is weighing on that decision. If we take a look at our IWM had a little bit of a rough day yesterday, but I don't see anything wrong here. Still holding well above its 50-day moving average. It looks to me like it's just resting in here. Although we had that bearish engulfing candle, you can see if we run a line across there, we're still in this modest upside trend. Obviously, we're capped at the moment by that resistance in the top. So we've got this little pennant type pattern forming up here, or rising triangle that we would want to watch carefully here. If the bulls find inspiration, then certainly pushing back up through here will be critical, and if it does, then we'll start reaching out for those 2021, 2022 resistance highs here in the chart. If the bears find inspiration, and I think it's about a 50-50 shot here on this chart, that we could break that little rising trend right here and push down, and we would start looking at some of these levels down in here if those bears were to get going. Breaking down below here would be a little bit concerning for the market, because we could move sharply lower. And I think there's even a possibility that could occur if these earnings are good today. Because remember, if big tech earnings are going to be good, I would suspect that there's going to be a massive money pull out of IWM. They'll take all of this rotation money and they'll dive right back in to big tech. So be careful here. It's possible, even if those earnings are good, we could see IWM falter a little bit, because it'll suck the money right out of it. If we take a look at our VIX here today, well, our VIX, yesterday we were just kind of hanging in here. We didn't really do anything major. Little doji candle in here, but what you want to notice is that we're holding above this trend at the moment, and as long as we hold some of these support levels in the chart, we run the risk that if we get some bearish data here that moves us, then we could hold that higher low and move on through to the upside. So watch carefully here. I don't know what the data is going to bring us today. I can see that the futures have softened here just a little bit while I've been talking. The Dow futures are now only up 9 points at the moment, so we're finding just a little bit of uncertainty here heading into the open. So watch that carefully. If those bulls find inspiration, of course, what we need to see for the bulls is we need to see that trend break and a move on lower here in that chart. Maybe start retesting some of these levels on lower in the VIX. Let's take a look at our T21-22, which is the 4-week new high, new low ratio. And you can see yesterday at the open, we actually popped up and we were right up in here, about center up here in the bearish reversal zone. And then that almost immediate fade came into the market. We started pulling back. At the worst of the day, we had pulled back down into here someplace, but then rallied back up into the close a little bit to ease some of that pressure. So what we have for today is another very interesting situation where we've got upside opportunity if those bulls can find inspiration in these earnings reports that are strong enough to help push us on higher. Remember, we've got that uncertainty of what those big tech reports will be this afternoon. And then, of course, the beginning of the FOMC meeting and an FOMC decision on Wednesday, also adding uncertainty. We also have this really big opportunity for that downside move here in the chart. You can see there's our bullish reversal zone in here, so we could pull back a lot if those bears find a reason to do so. Let's take a look at our T2108. Percentage of stocks holding above their 40-day moving average. Pulled back a little bit yesterday, but there's nothing wrong with that chart. We are, up here in kind of that little heady area where we're a little bit extended, but we still have upside potential that this could move if we can find that good data here in the market to push us on higher. So watch that carefully. There's really nothing wrong here. Bulls are still in control, T2108. And if we look at T2107, again, yesterday we had a little bit of a pullback from T2107, but I don't see any problem here. Bulls are definitely in control. And once again, we're up here in a very lofty area of T2107. We're very, very stretched out, but we've got support levels in here. Even if we pull back, we would need a pretty substantial shove to the downside to really change something here in T2107. T2101 shows us our problem here. Even as we were bouncing around yesterday, notice our breadth of the market continues to decline, pulling back. It's displaying that uncertainty here in the market and easing some of that pressure that we have seen recently with that straight up run here in the market. So watch that carefully. One of the things we do not want to see is we don't want to see a move to the upside or a move to the downside with any energy if that breadth continues to fall, because it sets up that opportunity for reversal. So watch that close. Whatever move we make, if it's a good strong upside move, we need to see an accompanying breadth to help us hold that move to the upside. And so far, well, shown an awful lot of weakness there. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. Now, our economic calendar, we've got a few things to be considering here this morning. Beginning of the FOMC here today, we're going to have a Case-Shiller number coming out this morning. We've got FHFA house price index. We've got a consumer confidence number, which is going to be probably the most notable of the day. And you can see the consensus here is looking for a 99.5, which is a decline from the past on the consumer confidence. That's not a good sign for our economy if our consumers continue to weaken. And we heard from McDonald's yesterday of the really weakening of the consumer affecting things here in the market. So don't rule out that possibility that we could see some problems even beginning to show up in some of these jobs numbers throughout the week. We got that job openings report coming up after that, and some bond auctions. Now, keep in mind, as we move over into Wednesday, we're going to be running into ADP, Treasury refunding agreement. We're going to have employment cost index. We've got a Chicago PMI. We've got petroleum status, and then of course in the afternoon the big one is going to be the FOMC announcement, their statement, and the press conference. So be watching closely for that tomorrow, and just realizing there's a lot of anticipation about these numbers along with all of the earnings. And speaking of earnings, if we take a look at earnings today, there is absolutely no way I can cover all of these earnings for today. But if you want to catch that full list of notables, make sure you click the link just below the title of the video. That'll take you back to the morning blog where you can get this full list. We're going to hear from stocks like ADM here this morning. Archer Daniels moving a little bit lower. We've got Pfizer moving higher this morning. I saw Merck had a good report this morning, but it's seesawing back and forth here on its reaction to the news. We're going to hear from Procter, and that's moving lower here this morning. So a little bit of bullishness, a little bit of bearishness, and that's probably keeping us in that uncertain range here in the market. This afternoon, of course, the big notables are going to be AMD and Microsoft, so be prepared for those this afternoon. Of course, there's a lot of others in here, like Mondelez will be in here, Match will be in here, Starbucks will be in here. So we've got a lot of reports coming here through the afternoon as well. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me this quick favor. If this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube, and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, that would be click that thumbs up button, leave that brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I do truly appreciate it. It means the world to me, and you guys are truly, truly awesome. Let's take a look at a few of these stocks. And remember, guys, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market, and try not to chase overextended stocks, and be watching carefully for these morning gaps that we're likely to see this week, and the potential for big point whipsaws. Let's take a look at a few stocks in here. Carvana seems to be setting up in a nice bullish pattern here. I would keep a close eye on that. Unfortunately, this guy's going to report tomorrow, so likely going to mess up this chart completely. But a nice little bullish pattern potentially setting up in here for you to pay attention to. You might want to keep an eye on some of these aerospace and defense stocks. RTX has made a big popping run here, and just keep in mind with Lebanon kicking up its heels against Israel and all the things going on in the Middle East, there's reason that we would see these moving up. So RTX possible move on higher here. It's really extended in the short term. I'd like to see it rest more, but really extended in the short term, moving on up. So keep an eye on those. We've got like Lockheed Martin, LMT, that's just been shooting up here recently with these conflicts maybe expanding. So watch carefully there. You could look at maybe some General Dynamics, which hasn't moved to the upside just yet. Keep an eye on some of these national defense type companies out there, and because they definitely benefit with all of this conflict going on around the world. Other places to look would be in that defensive sector area of the market. Take a look at PepsiCo. PepsiCo, nice little push up here, nice holding an upside trend. Any kind of rest, consolidation, pull back into that trend, I would say sets up that next opportunity here for PepsiCo. Keep an eye on that. Coca-Cola is another continuing to move on up. I think it needs a little bit of rest here, but maybe started that yesterday, so look for that next opportunity into Coke. If we take a look at KDP, Dr. Pepper Keurig, you can see pushing up here into this resistance on the chart. It hasn't been able to pop through there, but we've got this little higher low and upside trend trying to put pressure on that. So if this were to rest or consolidate, something like that, look for that pop through there on KDP. You could also look at some of the things like AXP, American Express, looking really good here in this chart for that upside move. And it's one of the only in the pay systems that are looking good. American Express looking good, while Visa, it is bouncing off of these lows, but man, oh man, not happy there. MasterCard, not happy there. If we look at things like SQ, not happy there. And in fact, in all of these, what I would suggest is any rally back to these resistance levels in the chart, I would be watching for those failure patterns here to come into play. Visa rallying back up into some resistance here, I'd be watching for those potential failures to actually put on short positions in those, because they are not looking good. Even PayPal, I thought some time ago PayPal was going to start coming around after breaking this downtrend, but no, it's pretty ugly here. It is popping really big today on earnings, so watch that carefully. Maybe it's going to start coming back around, but it has struggled, and some of it, they deserved what they got here with some bad management decisions, but keep a close eye on that. Other places, take a look at like CVS trying to come up out of a bottom. I think that's worth keeping an eye on in here. If that breaks this resistance in here, notice we've got a nice gap above all the way into here that could be filled. So we finish out this bottoming pattern in here, break to the upside, there's a nice little potential upside move. Take a look at CRM. CRM, as I suggested the other day, was moving back up, and we did get a negative reaction right here against that big downtrend. But notice it's not terrible. All it is really pulling back to hold in here. If this can consolidate and hold, I would still watch for that opportunity for CRM to find that trend and pop on through. Now it is we've got plenty of time here before the report, so there's nothing you have to worry about here on that, but just watch carefully for that opportunity to maybe coming around if we can get a little bit of this tech stuff starting to work again to the upside, worth keeping an eye on. I mentioned Procter & Gamble here this morning. It looked like it had that opportunity yesterday here to pop on higher. This is one reason why you don't gamble on earnings. We have had this big, nice, beautiful upside signal occur here on Procter, completely reversing here on the day. So watch that carefully. Any rally back now, I think, could set up a potential short if that cannot push right back through. But one of the things we have seen here lately is we drop like that and immediately buy it right back up. So watch carefully for those. Other places that you might want to look, take a look at XLP. XLP, that consumer staples sector, holding in there pretty nicely. And one of the cool things about the TC2000 software is I can just click on one icon and I can drop right into all of those stocks that make up that that sector. And you can see there's quite a few of these in here to be paying attention to, and many of them that we've talked about already, like Tyson in here on that defensive sector. Definitely worth keeping an eye on that, the strength that's showing up there. Target, it is still awfully weak. That possibility that it could start working through a bottom here, that might be interesting to be paying attention to, but starting to struggle in here overall. Take a look at Altria. Oh my goodness, very, very strong here on Altria. Keep an eye on some of those stocks in that sector of the market, showing lots of potential. TAP. Now, TAP yesterday had a little bit of a rough time pulling back, but we're still holding this upside trend. Again, this is a defensive sector stock. If we can hold in here and see those buyers step back up, I don't think there's anything wrong in here. Dropping back down through there would be a bit of a problem. And then I still really like IBM. IBM moving strongly to the upside. I do think it needs a little rest. Little pullback in here that would set up an opportunity for that next buy, but keep an eye on IBM. So there's quite a few stocks for you to look at today. A lot of things moving around here this morning, a lot of moving parts. We're bouncing around in the futures quite a bit as earnings roll out. So be careful here today, remembering that we have those big tech reports this afternoon and, of course, an FOMC decision coming Wednesday afternoon that is likely to continue to keep that market a little bit on the uncertain side. So with that, have an awesome day, and as always, I wish you all the very, very best.